All right. So Kyle and I were, texting, chatting last week, talking about what we wanted to kind of jam on together tonight. And Kyle's been teaching a lot about and experiencing a lot about this idea of letting go, surrendering, and subtracting, right? And I thought about the title instantly as he brought that up to me, Ascension by Subtraction, because that's really what ascension is, right? And we sometimes use analogies to describe what the path of spiritual ascension is. And to me, I think, Kyle, one of my favorite analogies for it is I believe it's the Leonardo da Vinci statue of David sculpture. Have you heard that analogy?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, the classic one of
I
the
remove
statue of
everything that's
David's
not.
in there. What's
Yeah.
that?
I remove everything that's not David, right?
Yes, it's in there, but you got to remove everything that David is not.
Yeah.
I mean, can't get much more close than that, I think, in terms of analogies.
Yeah. And that is exactly what we're here to do. What I have found, especially in the last 13 years, that there are so many aspects of what we think is truly ourselves, but they're not. A story, a certain amount of money or a certain lack of money, a belief system. I mean, I always think of this example. If you've ever believed one thing and then you believe another thing and you existed through both of them, that means you're not your beliefs. So anything someone's holding on to now is a very heavy belief. That's to sometimes protect an identity that believes that belief. And the more I do this work, the more I'm like, I don't know that I believe anything. And even that's a belief that I'm not sure is true. And, so there, you can't be your belief. I always think of this as another example. I can't be the body. At one point, my body was a 5-year-old's body. Then it was a grown-up's body. Then
Right.
it wasn't, I mean, there was several ages in between those two bodies. It didn't just instantly go from 5 to grown-up, but eventually, the body changes and the cells change. And that after something like 7 years, that you have a totally different body, right? So you can't be your body, which means you must be something beyond the body. You must be on both sides of the veil. I'm a father, but I can't be identified as a father because I one time wasn't and I still existed. So I have a 6-year-old daughter and I am a father, but if I first see the true what I am before that, then these other things are done much better. Me as a partner, me as a speaker, me as a friend, me as a dad, they're all byproducts of the knowing of the truth of what I am, which is, I think, beyond words. I just start to really, really see all the things I'm not. I'm not my past career. I discovered last night I'm not even my dream career. I went back to the old comedy clubs that I used to be managed by last night. And I was a Comedy Central comedian, as you said, and I haven't been at those clubs in 11 years. Last night, I walked into a club that managed me up until 11 years ago, and I saw all my old peers and a bunch of friends that are great comics and stuff. And what that night was for, truly, was for me to realize I am truly done with that part of my life. And, one of them even said, do you want to perform at the Laugh Factory tomorrow night, at the comedy club, another club that used to manage me? And all my old nostalgic me showed up. But I was reminded and brought to my attention from an amazing woman that I'm dating. Is it a 10 for you to do it? And this is a big thing that I talk about, following your 10s. These are things, in my opinion, there's things you could rate the things in your life on a scale of 1 to 10. The things that you have to do but don't want to. That could be a 2. Like some people have a job that's a 2, or a relationship that's a 5, or
Right.
what. I always think of things that are 10s as the things that expand your soul, that actually take you past any egoic structure. To say yes to this thing, it would actually open me up into a frequency I don't understand.
Full body, yes.
Yeah. And for me to do stand up again would be fun, but be fun at the level of like drinking or gambling. It's like
a 7 or something.
Yeah, it's like it's a very exciting thing, but there's the ego's 10 and there's what God wants. And the ego's 10 is I could do this and then I'll look better, then I'll get more significance, then people will like me. It actually strengthens the ego. The ego's 10 is something like, if I do this, then I'll make more money. It almost is like not moving based on what the calling is. It's moving based on the guarantee that it can get before it even leaps. And Then there's the soul's 10 that would actually kill the egoic construct. And that's kind of those moments I feel that when we ask ourselves, like, what if I said yes to this? And it's like a thing that it's an open-ended thing that you can't see what it would be like. Your mind can't measure anything. It's like, what if I said no to this? There's, I always say, have you ever had plans with someone and then you hope that they cancel? Right?
Once or twice.
Why do we do that? Like, why do we hope they cancel? Right? That's because your soul in that moment is telling you you don't want that, but the people pleaser is going, I'll wait till they do it. Mm-hmm. But I always ask myself, do I hope that this thing gets canceled? And if I hope that, then I cancel. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really getting in touch with that 10 in your heart, because our ego doesn't work from the 10. In fact, it dissolves the ego to move from a 10. So I have been really feeling into a big question, which is with most things in my life, what would I become without this? And I think that our egos have taught us you need to have more and more and get this. And it's like, what would I be like without needing my family's approval? What would I be like without, whatever that for some people could be that overeating or drinking, or what would I be like without, needing approval from other people, whatever it is.
How about this? What would I be like without that part of me that's always willing to whore itself out, martyr itself, sacrifice itself to get other people's approval?
Yes. What would I exactly? What would I like? And is approval even a thing you need? Or is approval a thing that the ego needs to keep an egoic small self alive?
Yeah. Like what is approval actually? We think someone else liking their projection of me is approval.
Right. And that's a weird point, isn't it? Yeah. Liking their projection of me.
They approve of their projection of me, therefore I am accepted and loved.
Right.
They don't see the real me, but that's fine as long as their projection of me is liked. I'll accept that.
And on the other side, I am their projection of me is the ego's construct. In other words, their projection of me is good. So then I am happy now and I'm enough. Their projection of me, which by the way, always I think of this, there's so many people with different opinions of us. There are people that think you and I are crazy. And then there are people that think we're awesome, right? So what do we do? Just change around each person? Mm-hmm. You don't like me? Okay, then I'm not enough because you're the one in the room.
I'll be what you like. Yeah.
And so that's the great quote from the movie Adaptation that changed my life is, you are what you love, not what loves you.
And, oh man, that's a banger.
Yeah. Changed my life. That was one of the biggest shifts, is the understanding of like, yeah, people don't like me, but am I what they think with their own self-hate and their own shame and their own addictions and everything? Or am I even love for their hate? In other words, their hate is their own thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. Like, so for me, I'm like, I love them even not liking me. Right. Like, and I'm not a master at it, but I'm getting closer and closer and closer, because it's kind of like that quote, the sun never says you owe me. It's just shining. And the more you're connecting to yourself, you're going much more from in to out than that you are in lack, because someone else, usually without judging, a much lower consciousness, that's who doesn't like you a lot of times, right? Their own consciousness doesn't understand the light that you're doing all this inner work. So they're much more a collection of traumas trying to have an approval of something that would actually kill their collection of traumas, right? And so, how could you be what people think about you? It's so arbitrary and makes no sense.
Dude, it's an amazing point that you're making there. And it's making me think about this idea of like, somebody else has a projection of you, and you said the quote, you are what you love,
not what loves you.
Yeah. So if you are what you love, so we know like at base reality, everything's just energy. There's just energies colliding everywhere in the universe. So if everything's energy and you are what you love, then if you have the space within yourself to love somebody else who may be outwardly hating you, rejecting you, throwing negative energy at you, and you can love them there, if you are what you love and you can love somebody else like that, you're just saying, I'm able to love that energy which rejects me. And so
Yeah.
if inside of yourself, your ego's rejecting you, you'll also be able to love that energy in yourself because you've already done it in others. There's that mirror, right?
And if you really are doing the work, it's not even that rejects me, it's they reject themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, no one is rejecting you.
You
They're,
can't be rejected.
yes, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, let's put it in basic terms. If one guy likes a football team, a specific football team, he likes the Bears, and this guy goes, the Bears, I like the 49ers or whatever. I don't like you now. Like, what? That doesn't, like, there's no logic in that. But like the energy that doesn't like something, there's no ability to fully feel love for yourself and hate for someone else. That doesn't, right. That's impossible. Coexist. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how bad they are too. Like, I really believe we're here to learn love. And, you know, we've trained ourselves to love things that we egoically approve of. Like, both sides politically of the two major political parties think the other side is the dark side, right? So it's arbitrary what darkness is to each person. And if that's arbitrary, right, then it's internal. Right? It has nothing to do with the other side. It has to do with, oh, okay, I don't like that. And usually you'll go start to do the math and be like, oh, I don't like that side because they're my dad, or I don't like that thing because it's, you know, the same as my mom and I'm trying to not be like my mom, you know, or else. Right? So this is what we're here to do, is learn unconditional love. And can you love not only people that you completely agree with or people that see you, but can you learn to love shame? Can you learn to love guilt? Can you learn to love people that don't feel like they love you? Because the inner child is feeling unseen. So if they're not throwing you love, you got to become that love. And if they were loving you, you wouldn't do that inner work anyway. So you need that trigger so that you can be there for the one inside of you that's under the illusion that it's unloved in the first place.
Dude, fire, man. This is gonna sound really funny, but I'm thinking of a SpongeBob reference. Did you ever watch SpongeBob?
A little bit. I've seen the cover of a DVD.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And by the way, the DVD was Air Bud. It had nothing to do with SpongeBob. I've never seen SpongeBob.
Air Bud. My gosh, I haven't heard that in quite a while. Definitely watched some Air Bud growing up too.
I should have said Air Bud too. That would have been funnier.
So you're talking about these catalysts that we need to see those parts of ourselves that we've pushed off, we've tried to separate and project onto someone else. Like you said, I don't like that because it reminds me of my dad. That's a part of you. You're projecting out there and then judging out there. It just needs to be brought back into wholeness. And so I feel like sometimes we can, well, not sometimes, on the spiritual path, it's inevitable that we will have this relationship with our challenging life catalysts that keep recurring over and over. They keep reappearing in our life. I keep attracting that same kind of toxic person. I keep attracting people that use me, whatever. And it's like, the ego, the spiritual ego, wants to deny that it's creating those experiences, right? Because of its fragmentation, right? It just keeps attracting things that reflect its state of fragmentation. And so at a certain point, you're forced to accept, okay, I freaking need this catalyst. Clearly, this is here to teach me something. It's a lesson I must learn. And so I thought of that SpongeBob episode. Most of you will know it's one of the most original ones, actually, where SpongeBob leaves the water and goes into the air bubble with Sandy, the squirrel, and he pretends like he doesn't need water for a while and he can live in the air. And he starts to dry out more and more. And then he gets to this point where he's like barely even, able to talk. And he finally looks out of the bubble at the water and admits to himself that he does need water. Yeah. And it's that famous SpongeBob quote where he's like, I need it. And then he runs out of the bubble to try to get back in the water. It's like we all have to come to that breaking point moment where the thing we keep pushing off and rejecting and keeps coming back, we eventually go, oh, I need it. I've got to accept this. I've got to learn this lesson. I've got to forgive. I've got to open my heart here.
Yes.
When the breakthrough happens.
I completely agree, man. Like, one of the things that's so incredible about transformation is the universe literally requires you to start to become a different human being than you were before. In other words, the ego does a lot to go, okay, these are the patterns that I created to not get hurt. This is a way I see it. If you're a kid and you get yelled at, your dad screams at you, for instance, or you get hit, let's say, and you tie it to a specific thing. Let's say you got a D in math and you get yelled at or scolded. What happens is you feel a bunch of trauma and the body goes, I don't ever want to feel that again. So instead of it alchemizing and healing the trauma, especially when you're a little kid, it does everything it can to create a new identity, right? And so you go, I'm going to become an achiever. And you have an I even over the achiever. But the goal of the achiever is to just not get hit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, or to not get yelled at. So the underlying drive for many people's achievers is don't get shamed, don't get abandoned, don't get yelled at, don't get hit, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a God calling. It's actually your avoidance of something that's literally inside of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so at one point, some people might start to see, oh my God, I'm achieving all these things, but it's all because I'm scared I won't be enough. So once you start to see the illusion that's driving this achieving, then you have to do everything you can to start to become love for that energy. Yes. So for instance, I would have people say to their patterns, you're allowed to feel unloved in my body. You're allowed to feel like you're not enough. Now you're becoming the unconditional loving space for the pattern. Mm-hmm. So then what happens if you heal that wound? Now you might still be like, okay, I'm going to achieve, but life is going, no, you can't be that anymore. You have to literally stop doing that thing and become something that actually is truly more of what you are, but you've never seen before. Mm-hmm. So because it's unfamiliar, you trick yourself into thinking it's not you, but what you are more and more as you move forward in ascension is actually constantly unfamiliar, right?
Yes, like, definitely, yes.
People think because it's familiar, it's me. It's like, no. Because it's familiar, it's a pattern. Because it's familiar, it's a pattern you created.
That's so good.
Right. And so you're sitting here trying to keep being what you did out of safety so you don't have to feel that trauma again. But as you grow up, you're able to finally transcend the trauma because you're not moving from a 5-year-old's body now. Mm-hmm. And so life, I find, is shifting me in ways I've never seen before. And then it's like, now to keep this going, you cannot be and move how you used to move. It's like you literally have to learn how to become this totally different person that actually is more of what you are. And the more I cry out, the way I transcend stuff is by getting connected to it and watching as I tear up and the false me leaves daily. Right. And then it goes, now you have to do this to like support this and become this. And I have new cells suddenly that call me to be things that I constantly find myself saying, this isn't like me at all. But it's actually not like the pattern. It actually, every calling that you think that's actually you. And the pattern dissolves and you're still here. So there's no way you're the lower self. And, you know, I think about a lot of channels I've seen and people that are doing channels. They talk about the higher self to the lower self. Mm-hmm. And they're like, my guides say this to the lower me. And I'm like, dude, those guides are you. And the lower you is something you can transcend and still be alive after you transcend it. So the lower you is just a bunch of gunk in the mud that you're calling me.
Why do you need a lower self?
Right.
What's that?
Right. So when people are like, the guides are telling me, I'm like, no, you're telling a bunch of shit. Like, Can I say that? Bunch?
You can say the word bunch.
Okay, cool. So the higher is going, do this. It's like, that's actually you, right? Mm-hmm. And the pattern under it has got to follow that. And then a lot of the pattern that was developed out of protection from getting hurt dies. But we don't want to live a life out of don't get hurt again. We want to live a life out of what calls me into the true essence of what I am.
It's like survival versus thrival.
Completely. And that's what I believe we're moving towards, because survival now, by the way, believe it or not, is dying. In other words, survival, like here's a great example.
Survival gets you killed.
Survival gets you killed. You cannot heal things from survival. In other words, if you have a goal of being safe, you're going to be more in danger than if you have a goal to expand. Mm-hmm. You expanding will divinely protect you. But you moving from an egoic construct of safety and trying to fix things actually is keeping the lie that you're in danger going the whole time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Survival attracts danger.
Of course.
What is survival for? Avoidance of danger. Survival, therefore, attracts danger. Thrival attracts opportunity, possibility, emergence,
Yes,
expansion.
completely. And usually when I have a thing that feels like an issue that I have to fix, more and more as I do the work, I go, I'm not going to do anything right now, because any action that I do from the same frequency of the problem is just going to aggravate the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, okay, I release that, I let it go. It still can exist, but I'm going to find out more of what I am. And then almost always it naturally takes care of the issue, and sometimes
Love
I
the way you said that.
get it, but yeah, the issue is a byproduct of the energy in your body that you haven't ascended from,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. Well, so then let's talk about that, because part of the subtraction process we're talking about is just surrendering. You can see subtraction as another word for surrendering. To surrender is to give up, right? Which is similar to subtract. So I feel like, using the David in the block of stone analogy, if the goal of the spiritual journey is to subtract the separate self, the not self, the lower self, then all spiritual practices, other than abiding in the awareness of your true self, must ultimately perpetuate the separate self, however subtly it may be. And now a spiritual practice like daily meditation or mantra or whatever it might be, prayer, these things are still very good and create progress, but ultimately, like, that practice in and of itself cannot transcend your sense of separateness, because there's a separate self who's trying to improve itself and fix itself and heal itself. You're a finite character on a journey still. So, the ego can't get rid of itself at the end of the day. We have to surrender the ego to the true self, and more, I think, abide as pure awareness, love, however you like to qualify it. And that to me is the subtraction. It's like subtract everything but the simple awareness of being, and abide there and marinate in that awareness of being as often as you can throughout the day. And while you're in that state of self-awareness, self-abidance, being in the heart, it's like subtraction is going on, right? You're subtracting the not self when you're in the true self. It doesn't necessarily have to always be this act of negation, correcting your thoughts, correcting the false beliefs. That has its place, and we need to do that. But I always just come back to this remembrance that the most powerful spiritual practice there is abiding as love, abiding as awareness, being the real self you are. And that's the greatest act of subtraction, isn't it?
It is. And by the way, there's something that kind of unfolded today, which is a third. I kind of think of it in levels. Not only is it to do what you just said, but I'm going to add the word receive, because I noticed that empaths, especially, and I would imagine anyone watching this call is an empath. Narcissists don't watch this, right? You know, because the narcissist is a blocked egoic construct that does not want to grow, right?
I already know everything. They can't teach me anything.
Correct. So most of the people in the audience, your husband. I'm just kidding.
You're at least not a narcissist. We'll say that.
Yeah. I found that a lot of times, like, it's just people dragged into our events. They're the ones that, don't want to see this or hear this. Right. Yeah. So a lot of times people, wonder, am I a narcissist or whatever? I just want people to know, if you're doing this work and you're able to hear this far, no, because you're listening to any construct that's past any egoic wall, and a narcissist only is identified with that wall and doesn't understand there's anything past it. So I just want to throw that out as a side note. But empaths are used to, in the old paradigm, bringing blocked energy into their life so they can pick it up or heal it. Right. So empaths are that's why people that are in big open-hearted energies often get into relationships with people that are closed-hearted. In fact, their open-heartedness might have even showed up as a byproduct of their parents in their childhood. Maybe out of feeling completely unseen, they open their heart as a protective mechanism, whatever. So empaths are very good at often being used to, I need closed energy around me. I don't know who I am. And the big new move for empaths is to receive a relationship that expands you, receive a career that expands you, receive that you're fully loved now. And a way that I see it is like level one is if you grew up in your family unit, it could be dangerous or unsafe, or you weren't allowed to be seen. It doesn't have to be dangerous. It could be like your voice didn't matter or whatever. Mm-hmm. Level one is like if you lived in a bad, dangerous area. Level two is when you gain your egoic independence to break out of that, right? So level two is I've developed a boundary from level one, and I'm now here and I'm blocking anyone from telling me what to do. I'm going to follow my own independence, which is great. You learn to follow your heart. But then there's also a lack of receiving something that could be safe, because you think that if you open the door, it's like you live in a bad area and you're going to open the door to violence or something really bad. Mm-hmm. Level three would be like you've now moved to a really safe area, and you're sitting here still in this place of fighting like the old world. And instead you got to receive now the instant love, and that will transcend the protective mechanism that you had developed to get out of level one. So level one is like you're an egoic in an egoic construct, right, of your family and their anger or their whatever, the patterns of the people around you. Level two is you find your independence from that, but it's still based on I'm no longer going to let these people in my life, and it's not based on a calling. And then the third level is, okay, I have that developed, but I'm going to receive from something beyond me, like God, the universe, a person that can actually see my soul. You know, a lot of people get into relationships on purpose with people that can't see their soul because it's too scary to let yourself just die. What's to be seen, right? Yeah. So there's people that say they want to be seen, but then when they are, that's actually death to an egoic construct that you had created. And it doesn't want to be seen, because it would be being seen as death to the ego. Being seen to the soul is expansion. Right. So seeing is the job here, because if it's ego and it's false, it'll die and be cried out through your eyes. If it's the truth, it'll just be what expands you, and it's what's still here. So this is why meditation is so big, because you listen long enough, you start to see more and more on the inside and what you believe. And everything that's seen that's not the truth leaves, and everything that's seen that is the truth is what you start to become more and more of.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I'm loving this conversation so much.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, this is so empowering, man. Just this understanding that we don't have to improve ourselves. We don't have to fix ourselves. We're just like Leonardo da Vinci, chipping away at the stone to reveal the increasing majesty and beauty of the true self that was always there. Yeah. And don't you feel like that's hard, though? There's a challenge in that, to be able to hold both as being true at the same time, that yes, I am a perfect being in heaven, here and now and forever. That's true.
Yes.
And I'm also experiencing a dream character of relativity and limitation, and trying to evolve and transcend those limitations in the dream. Like both of those have to be held in a balanced awareness for us to really see something, as you're saying, without judging it or feeling resistance to it. Because you can see something and feel great resistance, and it isn't going to be healed. It's going to be recycled again and again. So it's getting to that place where you can actually see the self-loathing or whatever it might be, and say, or the narcissism, let's use narcissism, to really admit to yourself, yeah, there is a part of me that is very narcissistic. And it's been really painful to admit that to myself. So I avoid it, or I deny it when people accuse me of it. But you have to have that radical self-facing inward turn at some point where you say, no, there is a part of me that is very arrogant, and I no longer want to carry that anymore. And so you begin to chip that part of the not self away.
And you know how a way that I would get rid of that? Like if I found, oh, there's a part of me that's being very arrogant here or whatever, I don't want it anymore, so I love it. I accept my arrogance, because a pattern only works if you resist it.
Yep.
Right? A pattern that you're trying to get out of gets louder and louder, but a pattern that you go, you're allowed to be here, falls apart. And if you're saying, I love you, even if you're full of shame, I love you, even if you are full of guilt, I love you if you're scared of being, I love the part, you're allowed to be abandoned in my body. Like, these are things that I actually say. And then, you know, when you were talking about how do you balance that, here's a way I see it. People think, okay, there's my higher self, and there's my patterns of all the egoic construct of being a human. Now, the trick that people have is they think they're this one, but you're actually this one holding the concept of the higher self. and the illusion of the low self. In other words, it all exists within you, all the high and the low, the darkness, everything exists within the space that you are. So the more I do this work, the more I understand what I am is actually the space. I'm much more the space around me than any of the small stuff. And that makes the small stuff easy to subtract, because as I listen to the space through meditation, I start to become an infinite portal for the small self to fall out of. Right. So when we go, am I this or this? You're actually creating that these are opposing things. So this higher self is actually kind of your egoic response to your lower self. So you're like, I'm going to get out of this thing. I'm going to ascend from this. It's like, no, you're in resistance to this. So your idea of higher really isn't higher. It's just an egoic construct you have to create an instant fix. But that's the universe trying to show you that you have a fixing pattern that's trying to do it and not actually surrendering to the truth of what you are for the ascension and for the freedom that's trying to come to you so easily.
Yeah, man, that's I think why it's challenging to balance both of those things. Because if we're really focused on the lower self that we're trying to fix and improve all the time, then it keeps us perpetuating our sense of separation. And so how can I hold that I'm trying to improve this lower self, fix it, heal it, and I'm already perfect and complete? It's like there has to be this radical surrendering, I think, of you stepping into the pure awareness of your life. I'm just watching my life. Even my growth, even my evolution is something I'm just watching. Because like you said, I'm the space, I'm the awareness that sees both higher and lower self.
And here, a sentence you said that would be really interesting to look at is when we say, I want to improve myself. This is kind of far out to say, but you got to hear this the right way. I would advise people not to try to improve yourself and instead actually connect to the true essence of what you are. Because usually the one doing the improving or the doing or the fixing is the ego.
Is the one who needs to be improved.
Right. So a way to improve yourself is to listen more and more to what is and watch as the one that wants to be better, usually so that it's not abandoned or unloved or a failure. Right.
Survival.
Right. So the one that wants to improve yourself in a certain way is actually usually still a pattern trying to get to an arbitrary state of higher to not be the lower. Right? And so what if instead of saying, I want to get better, you just start to listen to the now and let life just release the egoic constructs that no longer serve you at its pace as you merge much more with the essence of what you are, versus me going, how do I fix that? How do I fix me? The ego can't fix itself. It's like being a third grader and trying to fix third grade. You got to become a fourth grader and it'll purge third grade.
Yeah, right? Very much so. I think you're talking about the patterns, and you have to be in resistance to a pattern for the pattern to work. I think about the analogy of I don't know if it's called a water wheel, but like on old fashioned boats used to have those like water wheels on the side that as the boat turns, the wheel hits the water and then turns the wheel as it bumps into the water. It's like that wheel that turns represents a pattern. Or you could use a gear for an analogy too. It needs something to push against it, to resist it, to turn it, to make it work, right? If all of a sudden the water was gone and there was just empty void space, the wheel would stop turning. And so going back to space is the answer. And to me, space is love. Space is that unconditional holding of everything. Love is omnipresent like space. Love really is space. And when we connect to love, we stop resisting the gear, the pattern of the ego mind, and therefore it can't turn without you, right?
Yes. Well, the only thing that I see unconditional love actually is the now, right? Like, in other words, through love songs and movies and stuff like that, we unconsciously call love what it is actually attachment. We call attachment love, right? And I've used this before as an example, but if you listen to certain slow songs, Aaron, it's so funny because there's slow songs like, just say you'll love me for the rest of my life because I can't go on. So I just want to point out that this guy is telling this woman, if you don't love me for the rest of your life, I will kill myself. This is
Yeah.
the love song. Now, if a person told me at lunch that's what her date said, I would be like, I would recommend maybe taking a
Getting a
break.
restraining order.
Yeah. And in these love songs, we're like, oh, but these are attachment, right?
Mhm.
And I'm all about love, but love is about seeing and accepting. Love is about acceptance, right? And accepting what is the most loving thing. And
Mhm.
to someone, I love you even with that thing you're worried about or that thing that you feel you did wrong. I love you even if someone did something to you. I love you even if you have a belief that I don't agree with. This is what makes these things come to light and leave. So the now is actually this kind of 0 point space. This space loves darkness too. This space can hold room for wars and horrible things, right? So until we match this space and see what is, it can't be alchemized. And in the old world of self-help, it's been only about thinking positive, but from an egoic construct that buries the negative, right?
Mhm.
And so if you, instead of trying to just think positive, get to the now, the new high is here, right? Here is the new high,
I love that, dude.
right? And this space is so much more unconditionally loving because when you just sit and close your eyes for a good hour, you'll see so many things. And once you see them fully, they leave. And that's love. Love makes the problems leave. You know, and it's seeing fully and listening. And I think that's so important, like in a relationship, like making a space to like really, I remember one time in the past being in a relationship and they would just say, I don't understand you, but they didn't say I want to. They
Mhm.
didn't say I'm interested in it. It was just this dismissing from their sentence. And man, for people watching, if you want to make your relationship better, start saying, I want to understand you, and ask yourself, can you hear something beyond what your egoic construct has ever wanted to hear? Can you listen deeper? Can you inquire about that? Because I've been craving that my whole life and I'm starting to have it now, but um, really being seen and accepted all the way. And I just noticed recently I've started a new relationship and I just am in tears all the time because I just feel so seen. And seeing is just alchemizing all the lies in me that think I'm not enough or have to overachieve or prove something or whatever. Being seen is the greatest gift you could ever give in a relationship.
Man, it is. It's the real act of love is to just be with someone as they are with total acceptance of who they are. And, if you're always discovering new aspects of yourself because you're always going deeper into yourself, then you should always be discovering new aspects of who you're in relationship with. Perhaps your spouse, your partner, like they're also an infinite ocean with infinite depth to be discovered. And don't you think most relationships end or stagnate because people think they know each other already and
Right.
stop going deeper into one another?
Yes, I think almost all of them do that. And if they're not fully, if both people aren't doing the inner work, right?
Right.
If you go into a relationship and both of you aren't doing the inner work and just one of you is, right? You're capped at what the other one's at. Like you're always $100 million stereo system is as good as its shittiest wire, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you have one wire out, the stereo doesn't work, right? And so the lowest common denominator is what's winning in any connection. So whether you're with a group of friends, which is why when people are in low consciousness break off of you, they often connect to each other because they need to actually connect a lot on that lower frequency, right?
Yeah.
And so when you are doing your own inner work, you are suddenly able to see more. And if the other person isn't doing that too, they can't see you. So you start trying to be in a combination of you and someone else that's shut off. And you can't see yourself because you're like, I might be too big for this. But this has been my problem my whole life. Like doing this inner work, I've always felt like my beliefs, my energy, my love is too big for people. So I want to shut it down. But like, how about it's not too big? It's what it is. And there's a match for it that also probably thinks they're too big, and what they want is so freeing and so expansive. And when you go inward and see yourself deeper, it is such a great gift for the other person, because you can hear bigger and you can make their fears or their insecurities loved and brought to light, and that heals it. So it's, yeah, I feel like I'm just all over the place, but it's fun.
Dude, you're speaking my language, because in in Forty University, the basic premise of what I teach is that fourth density consciousness is heart-based consciousness. And all we're really doing here in this incarnation is learning how to get into the heart and stay there and live from there.
Yes.
And so few beings are truly living from the heart on our planet, more and more by the day, of course. But we're gradually evolving into the fourth density. And so each one of us that truly enters heart-based consciousness and lives there and abides there is transmitting a frequency to the planet that's healing the planet and calling everyone else up with us. And so I think if you're in a conscious partnership or looking for one, if you're truly situated in the heart, you've done the work to really live and abide in the heart, that's a totally new way of being. It's a totally new way of being. It's a totally counterintuitive way of being to third density consciousness, which is ego separation. Like it doesn't make sense from ego consciousness for you to sit with me and you're like, yeah, I lost my dad a few weeks ago. And instead of me coming down to your level of sorrow and trying to have a pity party with you and thinking that that's love, I say, tell me more about that.
Yes.
And I'm not going to grieve for you and affirm your victimhood, because I love you too much and I see you too much, but I will meet you where you are and say, let's go deeper into that. And, that could be offensive to somebody who's not living in the heart. They
Yes.
need you to feel sorry for them and with them. But when you're living from the heart, that's almost like an attack on somebody. So
Yes.
they're two different modes of being completely, right?
It's really true. If you live from your heart, it attacks people who aren't, because they're living from patterns, and to see their heart would be death of what they think they're identified as.
Yeah.
And it's very true, everything you just said. And it's an amazing thing that, that, which by the way is almost the universe's way of getting you even closer to your heart, because if you start listening to your heart and then you get crap from everybody, now it's the universe going, oh, I'm just showing you where there's patterns of shame and energy that are still triggered by what they think. So for you to ascend, I'm going to make that shit really loud, so that you know what I mean? So that you can see it and then let it fall off. And yeah, there was something you said that I'm trying to remember. I wanted to comment on it. It was so good, but I don't remember what it was. I mean,
well, maybe this will refresh your memory. You got it?
I know what it is. Well, so in 2011, I was working with my friend Diego, and he was also very high consciousness. We were really following our highest. And he's just a good friend. And we noticed that we created a game where if one of us felt off, the one that's present and here is the one that holds the light for the one that's off. Now, most relationships, the lowest, most off one wins. In other words, the light goes down to it. The light goes, oh, I'm sorry for being happy. I'm sorry for being free. I'm sorry for not honoring your victimhood and keeping your small self alive. And so we don't say it with those words because we'd be just sarcastic spiritual assholes. But I would say to Diego, I'd go, okay, I'm feeling off. Can you be present? And he would be like, I'd be like, are you connected right now? And he'd go, yeah. And I would tell him what I'm feeling, but I would tell him it, and he would hold a space of love. And I would end up almost like crawling out of the victim story and move back to a God conscious Kyle. And so I always think the present one is actually holding the space of truth. In the 3D world, the lowest, most victim-y one is the winner, right? And I was thinking in a call I did a week ago, the universe has told us through nature how things work. The weakest animal is the one that gets eaten. A lion catches the weakest one, not the strongest one. But and what journalism is not to inform, hospitals are not to get healthy. Everything is backwards right now.
Yeah.
And the way nature is saying is like, actually, you and your power is is better. You connected to source is better. But the way we've created a world now where every single thing is backwards, it's the most separate self-egoic victim that wins. And if you are doing your own thing that's successful or anything, you can just shut up. You have no opinion. You don't need to exist here. And the more we do this inner work, the more we go, I'm leaving that entire world and I'm moving based on the laws of the universe, not based on the laws of a totally depressed and over-medicated society.
Yeah, the victim doesn't want to see people who are living free and empowered. It's like we said, it's an attack upon who they are. And speaking of like the patterning of that, I think that the real like tall tale sign that you're truly living from the heart is when you can perceive, the fears and the patterns behind what someone's saying to you, behind what they're doing or how they're interacting with you. They're gonna throw a lot of words at you of what they want you to think they mean and who they are, but you can always feel someone's energy behind their words, and it doesn't lie. They can't fake it, right?
Yeah.
This is why we naturally don't like being around inauthentic people, because we know they're not pretending to be who they really are in this moment, and it's seen as threatening or uncomfortable. So like when you're really in the heart, I think you live from a plane of awareness where you can easily and immediately sense where everyone's coming from. If someone's speaking from a pattern, they might as well be saying, I'm speaking from a pattern right now. Like it's that obvious to you. But from a place of deep love, right? I'm here to be of service. I'm here to bless. I'm here to reflect to people. And so like you probably feel this way like I do, Kyle, like when you're in social situations or parties or something, and you may be encountering a lot of people that might not be on a conscious spiritual path yet. They're coming at you to impress you, say things that make you like them, and they think they're fooling you, but all you're picking up from them is that insecure energy they're coming from, or the fearful energy they're coming from. And so you're able to be really present with that part of them and love them and accept them for where they are, even if they're being inauthentic, because you're here to reflect patterns now to help people have a chance to get set free.
The next level of that is the pattern of the how, meaning like, so there's one pattern of like, please like me. I want you to see how expensive my car is. I want you to hear this, whatever. Go through an old paradigm of self-help, and you'll see a ton of people that go through self-help stuff and are like, I'm trying to become, how do I get, but I can hear under it, I'm scared.
I'm not enough.
Not enough. I'm horrified. Right. So if you hear people like, I'll start my business this way, I'll launch if I hear the word launch, I just want to throw
trigger word.
Yeah. I'm going to start, but it's like, so that I'm not a failure. And then really what they need to say is, I'm scared I'm a failure, and instant tears. You know what I'm saying? Like if you could just say the core thing that's driving all you're either saying nothing. Sometimes people you'll tell them about your calling or something and it triggers them, and they'll just tell you about like what a football team did, or what if there's a sale at Nordstrom or something like that. Just things that the most you can say. I always think when people make me say that the only thing I can say is, like what's go to Harvard. And I don't really have a opinion. Like, how old is he? 24. I would have been 5. Like, it's nothing. I'm not when people talk about third density things, I'm not invited. Do you get what, like, there's no participation invited. It's just, I need you to be paralyzed while I tell you a long story of something that existed. And I'm like, I matter. That's okay. I'll just be present and hear that and then leave.
Or I'll sit here and pretend to make you feel accepted. Wow. I'm accepting you. You see, I'm accepting you. You're safe with me. Two afraid egos safe with each other.
Right. And
that's a big one I've noticed, man, is when that pattern comes out most in social situations, when you're with someone that you notice can't tolerate silence or stillness, and they have to immediately fly into the next thing they're going to say. And you can even watch them kind of scramble for like, what do I say next? Anything but silence. And that's the part of them that's coming from, I'm not enough. I need them to like me. I need them to accept me. It's that needy energy that has to be talking all the time. And you can sort of like, I'll test people out sometimes when I feel that from them, where like we're in a conversation and they'll wrap up what they're saying and I'll just go, yeah.
You
And
know
you give
what?
them space, and sometimes they'll go into panic mode and, oh yeah, so what's the next thing we're going to talk about?
You know what's really, really weird was, as I said, I went to the comedy clubs last night that I hadn't been into for 11 years. And I kind of almost got a glimpse of what would have happened had I not broken out of stand-up comedy and become this. Because
Sure.
people, a lot of the people that I saw there, I was able to go back into it with them, but there was a absolute fear of silence, an absolute just da 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 da. It was funny, and I would riff with them, and we were funny, and it was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But today I was present with my girlfriend and just with her and being and just like listening and here. And um, I noticed that in that space, like I'm like, this is what happened because I left and I left and released the identity of I'm a stand-up comedian. Please see me and love me. I'm famous for Comedy Central or teen movies that I did or whatever. You know, I could see I could have gone back into that world last night a little bit, and I did for a second, but caught it. And I noticed that if I think of you, or I think of Mr. Rogers, or I think of Eckhart, or I think of Muji, 50% of what's going on is silence. I mean, if you watch Eckhart Tolle, he's doing 3 hours. He's doing an hour in 3 hours. You know what I mean?
That's so true.
Content in 3 hours because he has gaps that are twice as long as the words he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And the star of Mr. Rogers, Eckhart, Muji, a lot of times us, is the space. And we understand and we're in service to hearing what's here. But this now is so big, and I can hear when people are scared of that. And it literally, I can feel my mind close off
Yeah.
when they're
And your
like,
mind tries to go into that with them. Oh no, they're scared. I'll fill the silence for them.
right,
I'll
right.
save them from being seen.
Yeah. And then you just feel in a way like you're a jerk if you don't join them in that, because you're
Mhm.
like saying like, so you'll just be there for then. So more and more I try to be there and be like, I guess it's fine if I'm a jerk, because I'll just be like,
Mhm.
cool, you know,
Yeah.
thank.
You have to, especially with somebody who's suffering or somebody who's complaining or somebody who's trying to get your validation. It always feels like love to the ego, which you said has love upside down, topsy turvy. And the ego in you wants to say, well, the most loving thing is to validate what they want and nod your head and agree and talk back to them and feed them what they need you to say. And really, like the most loving thing for someone in that state is to just like dare to be in that silent space with them and continue to see them. Obviously, like it's one thing to be talking to someone and then you just turn away and like ignore them and there's silence because you're ignoring them. That's not what we're saying, right? We're saying I'm deeply present with you. But sometimes, we don't need to say so much. We can just hold space to be with one another. Like I can feel your energy, you can feel my energy, and that's enough. We don't have to fill the space with noise. And that doesn't mean we're like just sitting there soul gazing in each other's eyes, but it's like the conversation's more gentle and slow and easeful, and you feel more grounded and present with someone versus this rapid, like we're almost in a race to
Yeah.
talk because we're afraid to just be still and be seen by one another.
And sometimes you'll hold that space for them and they'll be talking really quick. And if you stay in that space, they're almost more paranoid. Like it's like the egos, like you're seeing their heart, and the talking is actually their prevention of you seeing their heart, and you're just seeing it. And so there's more panic and more fix. And yeah, dude, and you can gaze into their eyes. Like that is communication too, you
Oh
know,
man.
unconditional love. Like when you stare into someone's eyes for a long time, every single thing that's scared inside of you comes up, and you start to see them so much deeper, and you start to actually have a real revelation of, I'm looking at myself.
Mm-hmm.
There is no separation. I'm looking at myself. Like right
Yeah.
now, Aaron, you're interviewing yourself, and
Mhm.
there's tons of people that are you, or the people watching we're you, right?
Mhm. You reminded me of a workshop I went to maybe 5 years ago. That was like a public speaking workshop, teaching us how to get comfortable speaking in public, how to articulate points when you're up on stage in front of an audience. And the first exercise that the teacher had us do, I was invited by a friend of mine, is to divide up and face a random person. We'd go around the room and take turns and eye gaze with that person. And I think it might have been like we say one vulnerable thing about each other, like a little secret or something you would normally not want to admit. And then we stare at each other for like a minute. And it was amazing to watch, number one, how hard it was for other people to make eye contact, especially with a stranger. And number two, to watch my inner reaction to the fact that they couldn't keep eye contact and how that made me feel a little more paranoid of keeping eye contact. And it's like we're literally being told, look at each other for 1 minute, don't look away. And our eyes are like, what is that? What is that? Why can't we stare at each other in the eyes? And it's because we say the eyes are the window to the soul. But I remember the last lady, I felt really bad for her because she was like almost having a meltdown trying to look me in the eyes. It was like she could barely summon the inner strength to like glance up at me for a second and then look down and dart everywhere. And I remember my heart opening for this lady so much because I just saw like, wow, she's running from herself. You know, this is how she feels about her own darkness or patterns or whatever you want to call it. And so can I be that loving space that continues to stare back at her, even though she's freaking out on the inside, trying as hard as she can to just keep her gaze on my gaze. And even if she breaks away over and over again, I'll be here to stare at her anyway and keep loving her. It's like, isn't that what healing is? Isn't that what we have to do to ourselves?
Yes, that's so beautiful. I picture when you say we each kind of say a little secret about ourselves. You're just with this one person, and right in the middle of it, they're like, I just killed my parents.
Yeah.
Oh, like
don't just, break eye contact.
Yeah, well, I'll keep seeing your soul. They're buried in the backyard. No one knows. Okay.
I would just be like, they're joking. They're just joking.
Right.
For sure, a joke.
I'd be like, let's go see.
Show me.
Show me that.
That's like the beginning of a good action movie or something.
Right? Yeah. No, so, man, it's beautiful. Yeah.
So we've got, let's see, 23 or 13 minutes left, I think. Is that right? Is my math off?
23. But
23. That's right. 23. So I wanted to get one more idea from you before we jump into a Q&A. And by the way, if you guys have questions, I see a couple in there already. Feel free to jot your questions in the Q&A tab, and we'll definitely have some time to get to those. The last thing I want to hear from you on, Kyle, is, you know, one of the main things I teach in the 40U curriculum in the first course is about the 3 beliefs of ego, which I also teach a lot about on my YouTube channel, and I'm writing my book on at the moment. And this is exactly what we're talking about is I need to subtract these 3 core beliefs my ego holds. And it's the belief in lack, that I am lacking. It's the belief that something outside of me can fulfill me. The belief in external fulfillment. I have to subtract that belief. And then the third belief is the belief that I'm in control. I'm the doer. I'm the controller of my life. I'm something separate from life that can control life, is the third belief. And they all have to be subtracted day by day, moment by moment, as we notice how they arise. And so at least part of that, right, is seeing the false as the false, realizing the lack is not true. Lack does not exist in the universe. It is a false belief. It's a false idea.
Crazy concept.
What's that?
That's just such a huge concept to really, really take in for a second. Lack doesn't actually exist. Like, in other words, yeah, we will defend it and prove it. And anyone watching their ego can go, you know, oh, it does in my story or whatever.
Oh, I'm lacking right over here. Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're fighting for a belief of a false thing that actually doesn't exist because you don't know who you'd be without lack. Sorry, you were asking a question, but I just thought that was such a profound point to really take in. Lack doesn't exist. You know, we create lack egoically. Like you live in a world that can make enough food, you know, but if you start cutting all the farms down and stopping things and then creating GMOs and then so you can have control. You need to create lack when you live in an abundant world to have control.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you need to put lack on other people and the belief of lack to even get them to swallow your agenda. So I just had a moment when you actually hear, really, there's like different levels of hearing that sentence. Doesn't exist. You are a 100% expansive, abundant being who is allowed to have an incredible life.
Well, let's just start there then, because that's the first belief of ego and the most central core belief of ego, that lack exists or that I am lacking. And in terms of subtracting that belief, I think is just seeing that it's not true, right? Like you're describing, it's seeing that it doesn't have proof or evidence in existence anywhere, meaning I can't say to you, show me lack, show me what lack looks like. And what are you going to point to? Where's the lack? What shape is it? How much does it weigh? What is lack? You can say, well, look at this big empty space right here. And I would just say, I just see an abundance of space. I see no lack of space. I can't find lack anywhere. So why are we so sure it exists? And I think because we're the creators of everything we experience. So there's no lack in that sense. There's just what I'm not giving. So if I don't give love, I'll feel like there's a lack of love in my life. If I don't give abundance, or if I don't give myself a feeling of wealth and abundance, I can't experience financial wealth and abundance. I'm not giving it to myself. So isn't loving the part of me that believes in lack, loving, like you said, it's okay to believe in lack in my body.
Yes.
We're not rejecting the belief in lack. We're bringing it in close into the heart and then investigating it and seeing if there's anything real there. And when you see there's nothing real there, the mirror has reflected, the lesson has been learned, only abundance exists. Kind of like Beauty and the Beast. The beast is exalted back to its highest expression of the handsome prince. It's that archetype, right, of loving the shadow and bringing it in. Full acceptance of it is what alchemizes it and transmutes it back to its highest expression. So lack, being this belief we hold, is really just a mirror to show us this, like you said, really difficult truth to apprehend, that there's just abundance. Only abundance exists. It's a really radical idea.
I was actually working with someone earlier today, and they were crying out aspects of their past life, not like the life before today, not like when they were in the 1800s.
Okay, back in Atlantis, or yeah.
And they were saying, I miss this person, I miss these different things. And then we started investigating deeper. And what we started learning is that what the pattern was actually scared of is not being small anymore. In other words, the pattern was actually more crying out the story of I need to stay small to prevent myself from being seen in a certain way, or for being seen, like to stay small and to stay back is a protective mechanism that I have to, not have to be seen. And sometimes if you're hanging with me, like I want to see all of you. So to be in that space is death to the part that wants to stay small.
Yeah.
And so a lot of tears come up, but when you investigate deeper, the tears aren't necessarily only missing someone from the past or a part of your life in the past, but what you created as a protective mechanism out of lack from your past. And when you start meditating and finding only abundance, it's actually death to a you that literally survived on lack. Like you created lack as a survival mechanism. If I complain that money doesn't grow on trees and it's not easy, then I still can keep my story with my family. If I say that life is really hard and, there's all these very limited ways to see it, then I can still be bonded to the old family unit and the idea that what I am is my parents' kid. And your parents are a bunch of programs that usually didn't do any inner work. So, I always think of it as you're an infinite computer that's trying to upgrade, but you think you're the kid of Windows 95 and the old software, Windows 95, but it's your parents' childhood. So it's like Windows 1949. And here you are, this now 2023 upgrading thing, and you're fighting to be the lack that you're used to that has to do what it needs to not get shamed or scared. But those parents were raised by their parents. So it's actually Windows 1924, and they're raised by their parents. So it's actually Windows 1890. So you have an old computer program before we even had Atari running your body. And the truth is you're God's kid. You're the universe's kid. You're an infinite, expanding, magical being. And so when you connect to what you are now, it's expanding. When you connect to the pattern, it is about getting away from and surviving, and all the surviving is you fighting for lack, right? You're looking for proof of what you're surviving from. Otherwise, the ego's totally wrong. And the ego's biggest fear is to be wrong. So if it's saying I'm in lack, it can't be wrong. So it will defend the lack. It will find friends that will support that you're in lack. It will create you broke because that's what you're asking for. It will, give you everything because you don't want to be wrong. So if something magical comes into your life, you'll just be like, yeah, right, that's not real. Or what are they trying to get from me? Whatever. And you will shoot down your receiving of the infinite abundance because that's death to your holding on to lack so that you can stay connected to your old family unit. You're not the family unit. You're an infinite magical being. You're a Course in Miracles. You're total freedom. You're amazing. And that amazingness can even find love for the illusion of lack and let that illusion of lack dissolve right in front of you too.
I need that applause effect. Amazing, man. So good. Let's spend the last 15 minutes just going through some of these questions because I think we'll want to riff on some of these too.
See your people on here and I'm seeing the chat and all these kind words coming, and I'm so happy that people before I go to the questions, I'd love to ask the audience, is there a thing that they're getting out of it specifically that they're
give us your highlights.
Before we go into this, is there a thing anyone is going to change because of this? I always think these calls aren't worth what you paid for it. They're worth what you do with it. And you make today the first day that you are the most abundant being you've ever seen, So people are saying, yes, love is space, trying not to fix, accepting myself completely, confirmation of truth. Just listen to now and catch patterns, not to worry about the bad in me. Yeah, I love it. Mind-blowing. Awesome. I was making lists of what I need to stop doing. I mean, just now, just wow, this has been amazing in so many ways.
Susan asks a really good one that needs to be, I think, addressed in this conversation, which is, are boundaries necessary with unconditional love?
Here's the answer that shows up for me. I would say to move towards it. Sometimes boundarying things that keep you attached to the old world, to keep you attached to conditional love can be very helpful. I think empaths' greatest gift is when they say no to things. I can feel love for people, but as Byron Katie would say, I can love that ex-husband that was abusive, but that doesn't mean I have to live with him. And Byron Katie said that in one of her books. And I think that distinction was huge for me because I was like, so you just love them and let these people that don't align in your life just stay there. And I think what really causes me to grow is boundarying things that are not a soulful 10. But then on the other side, getting boundaryless with unconditional love. Like, in other words, I boundary myself from things that don't align. So I'm like, no, that doesn't align right now. I'm going to find my soul. I'm boundarying myself from going to a comedy club tonight and performing. But at the same time, what am I doing? I'm moving to a frequency that's actually boundaryless. So level 1 is you're totally enmeshed in things. Level 2 is you're boundarying yourself off from things you're enmeshed with. And level 3 is now that you're out of that old world, you're moving to boundarylessness. And you are here to discover what you are so far beyond your boundaries. In fact, what you actually are is boundaryless. So you learn how to combine the boundaries for the things that you're not judging, you're not shaming, it's just not aligning. Yeah. And it's keeping you in your small self. And part of your journey is moving towards your boundarylessness. And some you're people pleasing or have to be there for a ton of people that doesn't call to you, or keep a job that doesn't align with you, whatever. You're creating a thing that keeps your small self alive. And so learning to boundary some of those things, boundarying whatever, for some people, it could be boundarying drugs or boundarying, judgment, boundarying gossip, boundarying shame. And then you go up to a second level where you've got your independence. But when you go to third, you become boundaryless. This is just unconditional love meeting unconditional. Yeah. And, it's beyond space what can start to happen in a boundaryless, and it was talking about unconditional love. So in a boundaryless, expansive relationship, I feel like my job, my career, my meditation, my relationship, my team are all in a place of boundarylessness and working on this expansive, how good can this get freedom, that you realize there's no wall here, there's no cut here. It goes on forever. Even when you think of like how far the universe goes, your mind might create a line, but what's on the other side of that line? It's boundaryless. There's no end, right? And there's no end to the truth of what you are. And you also got to boundary yourself from thinking from the ego, because the ego does not know how to wrap its mind around the infinite vastness of what you actually are. So there's no way you could make sense out of or understand or try to get it or figure out from the ego what you truly are. You are space. You are the multiverse. You're all of this. Mm-hmm. And so boundaryless. Mm-hmm. But sometimes to get there, you got to say no to certain things that were keeping your small self boundaried in a small story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, man. It's kind of a nuanced question to answer, isn't it? It's like, depends on who's asking. Should I set a boundary? It's like, who's asking, if someone's coming from a super abusive, toxic relationship that they allowed and perpetuated for years, and they're asking me like, Aaron, should I set a boundary with him and get space? Like, I'm just going to say yes, of course, right? Like, get out of the abusive relationship. Someone may not have the SQ to understand what you're saying yet. And so we might say, yeah, set a boundary. But in the real, grand scheme of what we're doing is we're just choosing what kind of experience we want to have. And so it's no different than being at a buffet or something, and you're going down the line and there's items you like and don't like. For me, unfortunately, I inherited my mom's gag reflex for fish. And I've always wanted to like fish because fish is very good for you. But no matter how hard I freaking try, it always makes my gag reflex go, right? So I don't have to like set a boundary with fish. I don't have a boundary with fish. In fact, I wish I liked fish. It just doesn't resonate for me. And when I try to eat it, there's a non-resonance with that food. And so I don't have an interest to eat it. So like other people can eat fish next to me. I'm not like, I have a boundary with fish. You get that fish out of my proximity. That's still victimhood, right? That's still not freedom. And so like, if you have a boundary with that ex or something where you're like, I no longer want to share energetic space with them, intimacy with them, they're not able to have a loving relationship, then it's like, I still want to be at the place where I could be okay if I bump into them at a party.
Right.
And I don't feel scared in my body all of a sudden, because a boundary can keep you in that survival mode if you're trying to get away from something you have resistance towards. So that's never the reason we set a boundary. But love, in a sense, has inherent built-in boundaries, in the sense that love cannot participate in what's unloving. And so you'll find yourself just drawn away from those who are in unloving behavior. It won't even feel to you like a boundary. It's more like when you're coming from the heart, saying no to something feels really good.
Yes.
It feels good to say no from the heart because it's a yes to love.
One thing that's shown up for me that I learned dramatically is there is really a thing called compatibility for relationships and for friendships. In past relationships, I've done what I think a lot of empaths do, which is where if you're in something that's not aligned with you, you go, it must be me because everything mirrors me, right? So you go, mirrors me, so I'm going to do all this inner work, and you don't think anything needs to change on their end because empaths are only about changing themselves. But still, there is compatibility. And I have tried to make things work that don't work for a long time. And compatibility is so important because if you are like, okay, I have a plumbing issue, there's water all over the place, I'm going to call someone to fix it. But instead of calling a plumber, you call a barber, and then the barber comes over and they start cutting your hair, and you're sitting, why isn't this person fixing the pipe? It's like, because that's they do. And it's very easy to date or befriend someone and go, why isn't this person seeing me? Why isn't this person giving me space? Whatever yours is.
Mhm.
And it's very easy to go, why aren't they becoming what I want them to become? It's like, because that's not that person's job. You didn't call the plumber. You're asking the barber to become a plumber. And call a plumber. And so finding someone that does the thing that matches what your soul needs actually is your freedom, versus expecting people to become this thing that they just aren't.
Mhm.
And, there's a book title called Waiting for Your Cat to Bark. And I think that just the title alone, I already get it,
Yeah.
And the ego goes, I want these people to become this thing so I can be seen. And boy, when you start to realize all of this is you, it's not just about the small self finding someone that matches. The person outside of me is me too. So I got to find someone that can meet my needs or see me or take me higher than me just as much. So I'm learning to boundary myself even from just beating myself up spiritually and going, it's just me that's got to change because this person and I are totally off. I only work on me. I started really going, actually, there are some puzzle pieces that just also fit better in my life too. And want to offer people that sometimes it's easy. I've seen people do this where they're like, yeah, my person and I are off. I'm going inward. I'm trying to fix it. But they don't care if the other person does it. They're just about themselves. And I'm like, no matter how much you do that, I can feel this won't align for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, it's almost like there's levels of love in your life, in that not everyone is a match to who you are and where you are. So like for me personally, for Selena and I, in terms of like who we really invest in a friendship with, like we devote our time and energy into that relationship, we're very choosy about, right? Because everybody's my friend. I never meet a single person or see a single person that doesn't feel like friend in my heart when I see them. And I'll talk to them like a friend, right? But when you're looking to invite somebody into your life, whether a partnership or a close friendship or whatever it may be, you should be very choosy about what energies you're letting close to you, because you were even talking about the lowest common denominator will usually win out. And unless you're really empowered in your own frequency, you can pick up the patterns of others sometimes and whatnot. So if you want to live the most aligned version of yourself out, then you should only accept the most aligned versions of friendship or romantic relationship that you can find. And you should be glad to say a loving, happy no to what's not in alignment with that. The no from love is really always felt like a yes, because a no to what's not for me feels like a yes to me. And you can't lose from that attitude.
there was a guy one time that I bizarrely kind of miraculously ended up meeting with one day that like I bumped into in a coffee shop when I was actually in a really hard time in my life. And he said to me something that was so big. He said, everything in your life is either a red light or a green light. He said, most people's problem is they live at yellow. And like, if you would just honor the green lights in your life, like this relationship expands my soul. It's a green light for them and me. This career expands my soul. It's a green light. Oh, this one isn't working. It's the universe giving you a red light with that relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
It's and you just stop. Like no one actually stops at a red light and takes it personally or tries to force it to become green. Like you just sit at a red light,
Yeah.
Just
you wait for the green light.
Yeah, what's that?
That you wait for the green light.
Right. And you don't go, I need that red light to become green. That like there is light and you go when it's green, but it might not be the same person. It might not be the same career. It might not be the same place you live. So honoring red lights, it's not personal. Oh, the flight got canceled today. Green light would be, oh, another one opened up, but you have to reroute this way. You start to hear the universe is moving you in a different way to do magical things here. Mm-hmm. If you're like, oh, my flight got canceled, F my life, I'm the worst, I'm so mad.
What a disastrous day.
Yeah, you're just sitting there yelling at a red light, which literally people do. If you've been at a red light, in California, people are just mad that it's red.
Mad at reality. Isn't that such a great analogy for the way the ego is with life? It's like life is always directing our traffic in that way, but a lot of times we're not paying attention. We're trying to barrel through the red lights, and all the oncoming traffic is going to smash into us at some point. Karma is going to come at some point, and we're going to run into that karma. But if we're always in surrender to the traffic light, whatever it says is what I do. And when it's red, I just wait for the green light. Like, can you be in that? Can you be okay in that space to be waiting for a green light? Maybe all life has given you right now is a red light. Like, all you know is it's time to leave that relationship. But what's the next one? Please, God, tell me, who am I going to go to? You're not being told that right now. You're just being given a red light. Can you obey the red light? Can you surrender to it and be in that space of waiting for the green? And at the perfect time, the green light will come. And isn't that how it always works with the universe? You don't get a red and a green light simultaneously. When you're interrupting a pattern, when you're getting out of a pattern, you need to see the red light and receive that message first. Wait, all as the new thing is, you're calling it in, and then go when it's green. Don't go a moment sooner.
There's so much gold in the red light too, and that the red light is going. Also, we're going to clear out a bunch of trauma that was in your body that would have attracted a bad green light for you. So, you know what I mean? That's going, there's a service to you taking a break. It's like going to sleep. You're going to wake up at one point, but you still need to recharge and release what doesn't align with you. And so the red light serves a purpose in its clearing out of what you used to be to make room for something better. So if you're sitting anxious for the green light, you're not letting the red light's purpose actually exist. You're
exactly right.
Sitting here trying to get it green and keeping an old you that no longer serves you. And you're going to go into the same relationship just with a different person, right? Yep. Or the same person.
Or sometimes the exact same person.
Yeah, exactly.
Been there, done that.
Same here. Because one thing empaths do is they fall in love with the potential of the person as a projection of how fast we change. Do you that? Like the amount of...
I've never heard it put that way. That's awesome.
Well, I change all the time. I mean, if you look at old videos, I mean, dude, I'm the chubby kid in the movie 10 Things I Hate About You. And if you watch that, you'll see me as a totally different human being.
Yeah.
With voice and a different style and everything, right? And if you watch that, you see that I change, right? And so when you change a lot, I'm meditating constantly. I do ayahuasca. I follow my heart. I let go of things. I unconsciously think every person changes as much as I change. So
totally.
Someone
also a projection.
Yes. So they could be totally off and you're sitting there going, oh, they'll shift that in a minute because I did 5 years ago. And then you're sitting there in love with your mind's idea of their potential based on how fast you do the inner work. And then they might not change. They don't do anything. And you're like, come on, let's go. But that's our projection of how fast we move. It'd be like Michael Jackson thinking everyone eventually is going to be an incredible singer. And he's like, wait until you put out
a dancer.
I did. And when I put out Billie Jean, then they do it. And it's like, no, you did that.
Yeah. That's your path.
Yeah. And so I often go back, I've gone back into the same relationships before in my past, way in my past, because I think that, you know, they'll see the thing I was saying or whatever.
You know? Yeah, that was also a big lesson for me in my past relationship before the present one. My past partner was one of those relationships where we broke it off after about a year. And then there was this, please give me one more chance type of thing. And I was like, well, I've learned a lot in this past month. I've grown a lot. Maybe she has too. Let's give it another shot. And to my utter shock, the exact same pattern resurfaced within a month or two. And it was even worse than before. There was even more like tension there that was buried that wasn't healed yet. And so I had to ask myself, like, why did I fall into that again? I thought I saw the pattern and left. I thought I obeyed the red light, but then there I went back to it again. You know, I wasn't really waiting for the green light. I was rushing the red light. Isn't that what we do with not just even relationships, but so many things in life?
It's so true. And what did you say when it was like, you know, if they're like, please, I've changed, come back, wouldn't have that energy. In other words,
totally. Yeah.
One begging you is transcended usually, right? Like you know, and so if they're like, I changed it, but still it's sometimes one of the things we do is we change things, but through the realm of our egoic control. So in other words, the ego goes, I'm changing things, but it's still in charge. But true change transcends the ego's control.
Yeah.
Right. So that would actually surrender your relationship that ended more. That would actually surrender the story that was in that story with you. That would actually change it. But if they're like begging you to come back, I figured it out. It wasn't, I had seen the pattern, but it wasn't transcended, right? So it comes back louder because their awareness went up more, but that didn't actually do the shifting. I think our biggest pain, literally, tell me if you agree with this. I think the biggest source of our pain is the gap between what our true awareness is and where we're living. This gap, the more we do this inner work, the more we're going up in massive understanding. And the people that suffer the most are the ones that stay still in a 3D world, but they understand completely. You're a butterfly completely living as a caterpillar. That's the cause of, like, a caterpillar living as a caterpillar isn't painful. Its awareness is just like, do I have Cheetos? Oh, good, I do. But like, but a butterfly is like, I could be flying and the butterfly is doing everything it can to fly, but it's still moving in this small way. I think those people die earlier because they get illnesses quicker because the awareness is, you know, like, I think that happened to my mom, actually. You know, she was a major artist and magical and got in a very stagnant relationship with someone that just had CNN on for 10 hours a day. And she was with him for 12 years and got sick every way, got cancer.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
And just like, he's fine still. He's older than her. But because she was an artist and then went down to her smallness, you know, I think it killed her.
Her soul didn't want to be here anymore if it couldn't express its true purpose.
Ooh, what a great way to say it.
And our souls are always doing that. Our souls always want to express their purpose. How are we limiting that purpose? How are we playing small for other people? You mentioned like, I fixed it. Please take me back again. It's like, that's how the ego changes, right? I'll change for you, so you'll take me back. And I think that was at the core of probably why any of us return back to a unhealthy relationship again, is because, boy, it feels good to be wanted like that. To have someone beg you to take you back, ooh, that really validates my sense of separateness.
What a concept you just threw that is just mind-blowing to me. The idea that if you cap your soul will free itself another way.
Yes.
If you cut yourself off from your gifts, the soul will go, okay, we'll kill you so that express.
It's like it terminates the incarnation because it's not meeting the purpose of the incarnation.
Right. Because that's
what disease is for.
That is such a huge thing. If you mud it up, there's a reason that if you don't follow your soul, guess what? You get really addicted to everything. Right. So why is that? So it's getting you sicker and more stagnant and stuff. So you can get out of the way of your soul's expression. It'll do it on the other side of the next body.
Yeah. It's literally like a built-in save me from the nightmare mechanism or something, that we get sick and die, because sickness, as we know, is a trapped energy in the body from something up here that's trapped. And so it's like the way of communicating to the soul. I don't want to be here anymore. Please terminate the dream. And the soul gives us many chances of proving that to it first. But at a certain point, if someone's just blocked, they will have that kind of giving up on this incarnation feeling. You call it shame, grief, apathy, depression. But like, that's where the soul is at that point, right?
Totally, man. That is a big concept, that the soul's freeing itself no matter what. So instead of it being like, it killed me, it's just like, no, I'm just getting your ego out of the way so that I can express on the other side. It's just blowing my mind.
Yeah, man. Wow. So good. I know we just went past 9 minutes past our time limit today, but hopefully we'll still give you a little time between calls and we'll kind of wrap up here.
Hell yeah, brother. Good to see you. Thanks for having me, man. I'll see you in 15 minutes. I'll see you guys there. Love you, Aaron. Good job, man.
Lots of love, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope that you were truly blessed by it. And I wanted to let you know that I'm really excited to now be partnering with an amazing conscious supplement company called Organifi. A lot of you know that I'm also passionate about holistic health and nutrition. And Organifi has been a staple in my daily health routine for a very long time. They make the most delicious, organic, and high-quality superfood products that I've ever come across. And as you know, a healthy body is a great benefit for spiritual growth, because the health of your body directly translates to the health of your mind. Everything is connected. So feeding your body with high vibrational superfoods straight from the earth is one of the best ways to create that environment for a healthy mind. But getting all the superfoods that your body needs in one day can admittedly be a little bit tough. And that is where Organifi can add a ton of value to your life. I personally start every day off with green, which is Organifi's really delicious blend of 11 superfoods like ashwagandha, chlorella, and moringa. And then in the middle of the day, I'll usually have a scoop of red, which is a delicious energy blend full of 13 adaptogens and antioxidants from berries to recharge your mind and body with a delicious blend of organic superfoods. Your body is an amazing organic machine, but it needs the right fuel and signals to function at its best. And red is full of adaptogens sourced from organic herbs and medicinal mushrooms. And these are compounds that balance hormones, prime your energy pathways, and alleviate stress. So instead of crushing your adrenal system with huge doses of caffeine every day, adaptogens work with your body and give you natural, sustained energy all throughout the day. What's most important to me though about Organifi is the way that they go above and beyond to ensure the cleanest and purest ingredients in all of their products. They are USDA certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, certified glyphosate-free, and absolutely zero fillers. So I never go anywhere without Organifi, and I never miss a day without taking it. And Organifi is offering a super generous discount of 20% off of your entire order when you use the coupon code ABKEY at checkout. So if you want to upgrade your health regimen with Organifi, you can click on the link in the description box below to learn more about all the amazing products that they offer. And I promise you that your mind and your body are going to thank you for it.